The year was 2005. Gamers were eating pretty good, with the year kicking off with Resident Evil 4, followed by God of War, Devil May Cry 3, Ninja Gaiden Black, Ultimate Spider-Man, and Mario Kart DS, just to name a few. However, even though we were about 4 years into the 6th generation of consoles, Microsoft decided to launch the 7th generation of consoles with their follow-up to the Xbox, being the Xbox 360. Launched in North America on November 22nd of 2005, the Xbox 360 was a pivotal moment in gaming, being the kickoff to the HD console gaming generation. However, much like nowadays with console launches, there were several games launching on the Xbox 360 that were also already available for the 6th generation of consoles, like the GameCube for this instance. In today's episode, I wanted to cover the 8 games that launched cross-gen and briefly compare them. Were some of the games actually better played on the Xbox 360? Were some better off to experience on the GameCube? Were some more than just an HD port? That's what I want to highlight in this episode as we celebrate 2 decades of the 360's launch. So sit back and let's jump into this episode. First up is going to be Madden 06, published by EA Sports and developed by EA Tiburon. The GameCube version is a stacked one. Building upon the perfection of Madden 2005, which is easily my favorite Madden game ever, 06 takes all of that and adds the NFL Superstar mode and QB Vision mechanics. Superstar mode is all about having a character created and focusing on your career, where you sign on an agent, complete various activities like interviews, IQ tests, and then playing the actual games in that position. It is an in-depth mode where you can spend a ton of time with it. There are still the traditional franchise and play now modes, as well as various mini-games and create pretty much anything essential modes. It's content rich, and there's no doubt about that. The QB Vision mode is new this year, where you can use the C-stick to look towards who you're going to throw the ball to, and if you pass to the player in your line of sight, it becomes a precision pass. The gameplay itself, like I stated, is very much built upon the excellent mechanics and control of its predecessor, and what's here is really enjoyable. Even the game's presentation is absolutely top-notch, such as scoring a touchdown and seeing the player run up to the fans on the stands. Even visually, the game maintains at 60 frames per second and has some great texture detail and nice animations. Overall, it's a really good looking and playing GameCube version of Madden. So, on the Xbox 360, you'd expect the ultimate Madden experience for next-gen hardware, right? Sadly, no. Instead, what consumers were left with was an incredibly bare-bones experience that's essentially an entirely different game. In some ways, it really is just a tech demo for Madden. Right from the menu, you have the Play Now, Franchise, and Online modes. There is no Create a Player or Create Anything option. There's no NFL Superstar mode. It's just the basic gameplay. The QB Vision functionality is still here from the previous gen version though, so that's something I suppose. As for the game's presentation though, yeah, it feels very bare bones as well. Even just deciding the coin toss is relegated to a simple on-screen menu decision with no presentation aspect showing it happen on the field. It's just jarring. As for the gameplay itself, I mean, it's fine. It does what it sets out to do by being a solid game of football. The controls are different from the GameCube version for sure, but it controls well during my time with it. The main upgrade is obvious though, which are the graphics. Again, it feels like a tech demo, and it clearly is the case here. Obviously, we're seeing a significant upgrade from character models, people in the crowds, terrain texture, animations, etc. Although the game does run at 30 frames per second now, as a trade-off for much higher fidelity and textures. It does appear the online mode was where they anticipated a majority of people to get the longevity out of the game, being that online play was a massive push during the 7th generation. Even then though, they charged $60 at launch for this, which was $10 more than its GameCube, PS2, and Xbox editions, and it's kind of a slap in the face. In the end, the 360 version I think would have better benefited just being an HD upscale of the 6th gen versions, to be very honest.
Barber, the lone back.
Eli wants to pass. Madden dumps it off with the dive. Eli wants to pass. Throws it to the heart of the field.
Gets the pass off.
He snatches it from the air. The 20. The 10. That pass will go all the way. Touchdown. Spinning.
Alright, next up is Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, published by Activision and developed by Neversoft. So this is one that I've covered a bit in my every Tony Hawk GameCube game episode, and while the series was becoming stagnant for many at this point, I always really enjoyed this installment. This was the last Tony Hawk game to release on the GameCube, but was the first to be open world, essentially having no load times in between locations. The game has your created character leaving a Midwest state and heading to the West Coast to be part of the skating scene. You'll cross paths with a girl named Mindy, and she's trying to put a crew together to build a park called American Wasteland. You'll explore the locations throughout California to try and work your way up to stardom while taking pieces of the state to incorporate into the new skate park. Mechanically, the game built upon what was done with the Underground series, skating around or even running around, to tackle objectives within the world. The game also allowed you to actually use BMX bikes as well, building a bigger experience to the overall package. The game looks really good on the GameCube, still running at 60 frames per second and with no load times in between each area. And the game also runs at 480p progressive scan, which is always welcome. So, with the Xbox 360's launch, Activision was a pretty big supporter of the console and ensured to bring this to the next generation. However, I'm gonna be honest, playing the two games side by side, the differences are kind of minimal. The Xbox 360 version naturally runs at 720p now, with native 16:9 widescreen. Textures have been sharpened a bit and it looks a little bit brighter, but the character models look very close in comparison. Even the texture on Mindy's clothing here appears completely untouched between the GameCube and Xbox 360 versions. Cutscenes are the only noticeable difference where the 360 version uses the full 16:9 ratio, while the GameCube version has designed bars on the top and bottom so that the cutscenes maintain that 16:9 ratio at a shrunken resolution to match the game. The UI for the 360 version also looks pretty stretched out, and ultimately, the game just feels like it was rushed onto the 360 hardware just to get it on there for launch. While the 360 version is the only proper HD version, it's not worth the price it goes for when you can get a similar experience on the 6th generation. Now, would it have been the version I would have played if I had a 360 at launch? For sure. Was it actually a next-gen leap forward? Not necessarily. While earlier I stated that certain games would be probably beneficial to be HD ports of their previous gen console counterparts, at least do so where it doesn't feel like all they did was stretch everything out. Like I said, the gameplay looks fine, but that UI just looks so stretched, and honestly, it doesn't look very good in that sense, at least not to me. But in terms of gameplay, it still plays perfectly fine and it looks still really good.
Hey, this is Tony Hawk. You were listening to Demolition Radio on Sirius Satellite Radio. We just got word in from Hollywood. Some local skaters wiped out an entire protest, causing a traffic jam and leading to dinosaur sightings on the Sunset Strip. So if you're in the area, be on the lookout.
Next up is NBA Live 06, published by EA Sports and developed by EA Canada. So, NBA Live 06 is the last NBA game to release for the GameCube, but seems like it at least went off with the most content-rich version. Here we have a solid NBA sim game with nice visuals and good presentation. The number of modes were fairly staggering, with there being the signature Play Now mode, Season mode, Dynasty mode, Playoffs, NBA All-Star Weekend, Freestyle Challenge, One-on-One mode, Slam Dunk School, and Individual Practice. That's not to mention that you can still do roster updates, create a player, etc. As for the game itself, like I said, it's your typical NBA sim game with the NBA Live flair to it. The shooting and dunking mechanics are pretty intricate, and it does challenge you with the timing of initiating the action and letting go to complete the shot. You can even use the C-stick to handle the ball more defensively. However, while I'm not a big fan of sim sports basketball games, what's here seems like a solid one that would keep fans busy for quite some time, again, with the amount of content that's here, backed up by a solid gameplay engine. So, how does the Xbox 360 version fare? Well, it got the same treatment as Madden. It got an entirely different version of the game with an anemic amount of modes. The game starts off putting you, the player, in control, and you can start testing out the new controls and mechanics built specifically for next-gen hardware, which I really did like this idea. You can then pull up the modes with right on the D-pad, and here you'll notice there's a Play Now, Season, Xbox Live, Create Player, and Team Management. And that's it. That's all the modes for this version. There's no Dynasty mode, no NBA All-Star Weekend modes, no one-on-one. It's, once again, a tech demo that's incredibly bare bones in comparison to its last-gen counterparts. It honestly feels like they're just relying on the Xbox 360's Xbox Live push to really extend the longevity of this launch title. As for the game itself, thankfully, it plays quite good. The visuals here are definitely a noticeable bump up with smoother animations and great character models. It does still run at 30 frames per second it much like the GameCube original did. I will say though, I think I enjoyed playing the Xbox 360 version a little more in terms of the actual gameplay. There was something about it that just felt a little bit more responsive and a little bit more gratifying. But in terms of content, the GameCube version trounces this one. It really comes down to, do you want a prettier looking game with less content, or do you want a game that really holds its own for that last gen with a ton of content? Again, there was a $10 difference with these versions, and the one that was more expensive had the least amount of content.
Great job there penetrating into the lane, drawing contact and finishing the play.
It's good, and he completes the three-point play. All right, here we go. They will put it in play. Houston off balance, and Allen Houston from way down. Stifling defense by Wells. West to the pull-up.
Next up is Gun, published by Activision and developed by Neversoft. Released on all 6th-gen consoles, it was also a launch day title for the Xbox 360. This Western third-person shooter has you playing as Colton White, an adopted Apache that was raised by Ned White, learning the ways of survival in the Old West. However, things go off the rails relatively early in the story, and you'll be shooting your way through intense missions. What initially starts as a linear journey then turns into a more open-zoned experience later on, with RPG-like mechanics to improve Colt's stats. As far as the visuals go, the GameCube version supports 480p progressive scan. The environments look quite good, and the character models are detailed well enough with solid animation and facial work. The game runs at a fairly consistent 30 frames per second, with some minimal dips here and there during my time with it. The color palette used also nails the vibe of the Old West setting, whether running around the plains here to the town that has the sun setting over it. It all looks really appealing and quite good overall. As for the Xbox 360 version, here is where I feel they put a little bit more effort into this version than they did with American Wasteland. The character models definitely look a bit sharper, but the environment textures have been nicely bumped up and is very noticeable. Not only are there grass blades within the textures, but even the mountainous terrain is more defined, the lighting and the colors are a little bit different too, and the lighting, I will say, is one I can see being a little bit more of a preference amongst viewers than saying which one's actually more definitive. The UI still has that stretched out look that American Wasteland had though, which, again, not a fan of that, but you know, it is what it is. The 360 version, I will say, based on the time I played both of these on, seems to be the way to go, honestly. However, the 6th gen version still looks and plays spot on. It just comes down to the truly crisper texture work and draw distance. Overall, Gun is a game that's best played on either platform, but if you're gonna pick one, the 360 version definitely edges it out. Alright, reaching the halfway point of titles covered, I just want to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Retro Fighters. Honestly, this is the perfect time to highlight their new Hunter 360 controller that provides for a modern solution to nab a new controller for your Xbox 360. I have to say, I absolutely love the feel of this controller, between the blend of matte and glossy finish that mimics the look and feel of the original 360 controller, to the unique face buttons emulated here, to the D-pad being far superior on this controller over the original Xbox 360 controller. It's really become my de facto choice to use on the Xbox 360. Even the triggers have that smooth motion when pressing them down, feeling pretty identical to the original 360 controller's triggers. These controllers not only work on the 360, but will also work for PC. While I am sporting the original white color controller here, there's also a black controller and transparent green controller they offer as well. While getting a brand new Xbox 360 controller will set you back quite a bit on eBay, Retro Fighters is selling this phenomenal controller for $59.99. If you're interested, be sure to go to Retro Fighters' website and nab one once they become available. Thank you again to Retro Fighters for sponsoring today's video. Back to the rest of the episode. Next up is FIFA 06, published by EA Sports and developed by EA Canada. There's no denying the FIFA franchise has been pretty monumental for EA Sports in general, and FIFA 06 goes back to build a lot from scratch for the GameCube version with a completely redone game engine, giving players a different yet more immersive soccer experience. The game has a good amount of modes for content as well, like Kickoff, Manager Mode, FIFA 06 Lounge, Tournament Mode, a Create Tournament Mode, Practice Mode, and Team Management. The game touts a new control system as well due to the overhauled engine, but it lets players choose if they want the new control method or the classic control method, which is a nice touch. Even the FIFA 06 Lounge was a new addition allowing players to explore a variety of multiplayer style options. As for the gameplay itself, it's FIFA and it plays a great game of the sport. The gameplay is fast and runs at a buttery smooth 60 frames per second. Character models look quite good and replicate the look of the players nicely for sure. There is definitely a lot to enjoy here, especially for soccer sim enthusiasts, and thanks to the wealth of options on offer, it's a fairly robust package overall. As for the Xbox 360 version, FIFA 06 Road to FIFA World Cup, this is another case of a different version of a game being built from the ground up for the Xbox 360. The game is running on an entirely new engine naturally, but with the trade-off, the lack of modes. FIFA 06 Road to FIFA World Cup offers new friendly match, Road to FIFA World Cup, then game modes, which is literally just create tournament or practice mode, Xbox Live, and that's it. Even the teams have been reduced to only national teams. So it really just boils down to being a watered down version content-wise. However, much like NBA Live 06, you can practice moving around and scoring a goal in the goalkeeper while in the main menu, but what's even cooler is you can practice while the game is loading, which is a really neat touch. As for the core gameplay, yes, I will say the new engine and feel of the game itself is certainly smoother, no question. Thankfully for a next-gen version, the game is still running at 60 frames per second like its earlier console counterpart, but visual details here definitely feel like a drastic step up. Between the character models and lighting effects, it's nice seeing the players have real shadows as opposed to the static X-shaped shadows they had on the GameCube version. The overall presentation on this installment also feels like a step above, giving players an idea of how the franchise could move forward. However, the trade-off once again was, spend $10 more for this version of FIFA with an anemic selection of modes, but get the newer style experience, or spend a few bucks less for the last-gen version with a ton of extra modes and content. My money would have been on the last-gen version if I was spending full price, just to feel like I got more bang for buck. But regardless, FIFA 06 Road to FIFA World Cup was still a promising start for the next generation.
Gilardino, he's got into position to cross it, curled in.
Oh, that's a top draw here now with Totti. Gilardino. Really worth a try.
Good of the ball. Defenders have got a problem here.
Gilardino.
Did do well then.
Alright, next up is Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, published by Ubisoft and developed by Ubisoft Montpellier. So, for the game with the longest title out there, the King Kong movie releasing in 2005 was a highly expected film. After all, the director of the Lord of the Rings trilogy was at the helm of it. To make it more interesting though, director Peter Jackson worked alongside the team over at Ubisoft with Rayman creator and director of this game, Michael Ansel. King Kong is a hybrid first-person and third-person game. You'll play as Jack, which is entirely in first person, while the moments you play as King Kong will be in third person. As you and the crew explore Skull Island, you will face off against its natural inhabitants that are honestly pretty horrific to deal with. You have guns with limited ammo as well as melee weapons you can pick up and use, but can break over time. Later in the game you'll play as King Kong for a bit, which has you platforming and brute forcing your way through levels, and it's easily the most entertaining sequences in the game to just let loose. Visually though, this game is pretty stunning. The dramatic lighting effects, sharp texture detail, excellent character models, and overall ambiance of Skull Island really draws you in deeply to the experience, and it's one of the best looking games for the 6th generation. Ubisoft did a straight HD port of this with enhanced texture work, character models, and even more dynamic lighting, while also now rendering it in 720p. The results, well, there is no question this is one of the better looking games for the Xbox 360 on its launch day. The game's atmosphere is certainly richer, including fog effects like here on the shoreline facing off against these massive crabs, and then there's King Kong himself also looking much more detailed. This is to be expected naturally, but in comparison with the GameCube version, the team over at Ubisoft truly harnessed the power of both consoles across generations to showcase their beautiful looking game. The frame rate is unlocked on the GameCube, with instances of it hitting 60 frames per second at times, while the Xbox 360 version is locked to 30 frames per second. As far as the environmental textures though, while the Xbox 360 version looks a bit richer, the GameCube version does truly hold its own. The only gripe I'd state is that the GameCube version is so dang dark in the unlit areas. You could barely even see with the brightness turned up, and thankfully the 360 version does not falter from this shortcoming. Otherwise, it's still a game you must experience on any home console, just not the DS or PSP versions. But in all seriousness, King Kong was truly one of the stronger launch titles for the 360, at least one that was cross-gen. Next up is Tiger Woods PGA Tour 06, published by EA Sports and developed by EA Redwood Shores. First up, the GameCube version, which is a really stacked game in terms of what's on offer. There are a ton of modes like the traditional Play Now, then various other game modes like Rivals Mode, PGA Tour Season Mode, Battle Golf, and several others, as well as the game's My Tour mode, where you create your own golfing legend and take to the links. As for the game, it's a simulation-based golf game that's decent, but not quite my kind of golf game. Give me Mario Golf or Hot Shots Golf any day. But for golf enthusiasts, it's a solid golf game. The visuals have an unlocked frame rate fluctuating between 40 to 60 frames per second, with nice courses and good character models and animation. So here is the Xbox 360 version, and yes, like the other EA Sports games, this is an entirely brand new version of the game than its 6th gen counterpart. A good chunk of the game modes from the GameCube version are here, although it is missing something like Battle Golf, but the game overall is an improvement in virtually every area. The courses feel far more alive, there's excellent lighting effects, the grass looks more realistic, and the presentation has taken a step up. Even the create a character is far smoother than the previous gen edition, where that one had to load each change to the character design, whereas this one just loads it much faster. The My Tour mode has extra features going for it, and I love when the slow motion shots initiate in this version. Now, it should be noted that the game is missing half of the courses from that of the GameCube version, but the reason I give this one a more reasonable pass than the other EA Sports games is that this at least feels like it has a lot of effort put forth to enhancing the overall liveliness and detail to the 6 courses on offer. It's a version that feels like you wouldn't have been ripped off paying full price for this back then over the GameCube version. That being said though, the GameCube version still holds its own, especially still winning out, having more content overall.
This should work out just fine.
Great drive!
Just a little over 200 to the stick.
Not the best result here.
Alright, and the last one up is Need for Speed Most Wanted, published by EA and developed by Black Box Games. Most Wanted takes place after the events of Underground 2, but now it's set in Rockport City, and the cops are incorporated back into the racing itself, which we hadn't seen since Hot Pursuit 2. The game starts off where you're taking on various high-end racers to work up the ladder of the Blacklist, a list of elite drivers in Rockport City. Things go wrong very early on, making you lose your car and now have to work your way from the bottom up to really climb the ladder for some revenge. The gameplay mechanics that you've come to love from the Underground games are here, including car customization, but there are other tweaks as well. New this time around is a speed breaker mode, which allows you to slow down time and maneuver ultra responsively within the time frame you have using this. However, with cops back in the scene of the Need for Speed series, the game has you not only outrunning them during races, but when a race ends, you will still need to evade them post-race, which provides for some pretty intense moments. You can even utilize the environment as your weapon, colliding into objects that can affect the chase and stop the cops from following you. Visually, the game looks pretty good, but due to the game's setting being in broad daylight, the textures do appear a bit more washed out here. The Underground games utilize the nighttime and lighting components perfectly to really create this beautiful art direction, but Most Wanted is missing that awe that the Underground games provided visually. The game does retain its 30 frames per second from previous installments, and the cars still look very detailed for sure. But again, it's the texture work due to the broad daylight lighting that's definitely dulled out here. And so we enter the Xbox 360 version, which, like American Wasteland and Gun, is the only HD version available for this installment. And for the most part, yeah, the game definitely looks better with much sharper texture work on the map, especially the road itself. In comparison, the road looks very washed out on the GameCube versus the Xbox 360 version. The lighting is much more dramatic for the 360 version as well. Now, one area that I wasn't actually a fan of on the 360 version was that it has that infamous piss filter, which dulls the colors versus the GameCube version having a more profound color palette. One thing I appreciated with this version though was that the UI is not stretched out, but rather feels natively designed for the aspect ratio. It's definitely a nicer looking version for the most part overall, but that 7th gen piss filter that many games used oddly during that era was evident right from the start of me playing this. Again though, take that away and it's clearly the version to play, despite being more expensive on the 360 than the 6th gen consoles. However, for 6th gen owners, there's nothing wrong at all with that version, and realistically, you just need to overlook the more washed out road textures. Now, the Xbox 360 may have had a healthy amount of HD ports or versions to kick off the HD era in gaming, but the console certainly had some awesome exclusives at launch to provide some true next-gen experiences. As you saw though, the results for these games all varied, whether truly the essential experience or more of a tech demo rather than a content-rich experience. The GameCube versions of all of these games still very much hold their own, and they don't provide any lacking package, but it was fascinating seeing what the developers did to get their games out into the start of the 7th gen with limited time. So, what do you guys think? Did the games look that much better on the 360 than the GameCube counterparts? Did you have any of these games with your launch 360? Did you play any of these on the GameCube? Sound off in the comments below, as I'd love to hear your thoughts. Additionally, I want to give a quick shout out to my GCG Nation enthusiasts, Local S'mores Pop-Tart, Retro Wolf, Alejandro Mendoza, Julio Cesar Garcia Zamora 34, Daniel Herrera, Akima, MJA42X, Smith B, and Jonas Rye. If you really enjoy the content and are interested in further supporting the channel, click that join button, and for $2 a month, you'll get early access to videos, membership shoutouts and videos, and exclusive icons that I made that go next to your username when commenting. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will catch you all in the next episode, GCG Nation.